There we go, Andy. How's it going?
Doing good, doing good. How are these beautiful people doing? A lot of real pretty faces on the screen tonight.
Yeah, we got 53 of them, so they're doing good, I hope. So maybe you can start by introducing yourself a little bit, so people can understand who the Andy Newton is.
Yeah, so I have been in sales for some time now, for as long as I can remember, pretty much since I was 15, working at a store in Aventura, and had to learn Spanish to survive because all the big clients spoke Spanish. So I just literally learned it by reading El Nuevo Herald, and that was my first venture into sales, and I've kind of stuck with it since. Born and raised in Miami, primarily in Liberty City during my formative years. I always like to make the joke every time I tell people that. They say, "You don't sound like you're from Liberty City." And I said, "Well, thank a mother who wouldn't let me speak slang and lots of no cable television and infomercials." So, but yeah, I got two beautiful little girls. I've been married for 7 years now. I've been in the music business, the shipping business, but it's always come back to sales, and I've found my success via helping other people. That's really kind of been the North Star. So.
Very good, very good. Thank you for sharing. So we'll just jump in real quick. You mentioned you're in sales. Definitely a big component of your life is upskilling yourself, learning the tricks of the trade. So when you're selling or maybe not selling, how do you make others believe in your vision?
Well, the first thing is you have to believe in yourself. So when I first started off in what I would call my first hardcore sales job, I'll never forget getting a pitch book and, being from a Caribbean background. Everybody says, "Hey, you can't say this." And the first time I heard somebody on the phone or pitching a client, I said, "You can speak to people like this." And they said, "It's not rude. You're just trying to make a point."
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it took me literally 90 days to get past this. And I'll never forget when I made my first sale. So like I said, my family's from the Caribbean. So I was walking to work, and I was about to be evicted from my apartment. And I'm walking, and a bird, literally, I heard the bird in the tree, and a bird took a poop on my shirt. And it was the last clean shirt that I had. And being the mama's boy that I am, who did I call? I called my mother. And on the verge of tears, I said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it." And then she said, "Boy, in Trinidad, bird poop is good luck." And I was like, "Well, I hope so." And I went into the office that day and closed my first sale, and I made $8,000 in one day. And not only did I make it, the rule of the company was that if the person wired the money in for the sale, that you could get paid that week. So I managed to get paid by Friday. So I saved my apartment, everything. So that belief in yourself, because at that point I was literally about to lose it all. And I had no choice. I was like, well, I just have to do it. And it just spurred this thing inside me, and it just clicked. And once I realized that, I've had a lot of success since. That's the first part. The second part is just as important, and that's that you actually have to care about the person you're trying to sell something to. So for instance, right now, I specialize in distressed real estate investment. And the first question that we always ask anybody who is trying to sell us a property is, why haven't you listed this with a realtor? Because they're going to pay you more than we are, right?
Yeah.
And then we start to get into it, and then we say, well, hey, look, here are the things you could do. Here's what we're anticipating the rehabilitation costs are going to be. Are you in a position to do that? And they either say yes, and we'll say, well, why don't you just list it? And they'll either go ahead and do that, or they'll still say, well, we don't want to do that. We'd still rather sell to your company. Or they'll say, well, no, I can't do all those things. And we'll say, well, hey, based on the risk we're going to be taking on, here's what we have to do. And going a step further, really showing you care, I just spoke to a client a month ago, and we just bought his house this month. And he was not going to sell us the house, but I knew that he was having knee surgery through our conversation. So I said, hey, look, do you need a second opinion? And he said, yeah, I actually do need a second opinion. I don't feel comfortable with the doctor I have in Jacksonville. And I just happened, one of my old sales reps from Comcast, he was 72 and he just had knee surgery, and he was a runner just like myself. And we were talking about the knee replacement and how great it was. And I said, hey, I think I might know a really good doctor down here. So I called that guy from Comcast, called this guy back and said, hey, look, I have the information from you. And lo and behold, I get a random call in the middle of the day on October 1st. And it says, hey, Andy, were you also interested in purchasing my house? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, hey, what could you do? Right. And we came and we actually ended up buying his house, and that made our company $25,000 from the purchase of that home and what we're going to be doing on it. But that sale came from me just offering to get him a second opinion on a doctor. So truly caring about the person you're selling to is also is a major component.
I see. So would you say being genuine is a major component of not just closing a sale, but keeping relationships and kind of trying to incorporate your vision on others?
100%. So I remember when I first got into a financial sales job, and everybody was all buttoned up. And if you can't tell by now, I probably laughed 50 times since this conversation has started. I laugh all the time. I just find the humor in life. I enjoy life, and I just like people. And I remember trying not to, laugh as much. And they said, you have to be a little more serious. And I'm like, I'm not closing any deals listening to these guys. And I'm like, look, I'm either going to make some money or get fired here in the next couple of months anyway. So let me just be myself. And lo and behold, by being myself, I ended up becoming one of the top salespeople in the company at the time. So.
Very cool. Very good. No, definitely. You gotta laugh. You gotta let loose. So on that note, what theme consistently runs through your life? Is it humor, or what's your message, your theme?
I would say that I've always, no matter how good things are going, or whenever I run into a situation, there's something that always kind of takes me back to the core of who I am, and that allows me to find strength in different situations, and it also allows me to empathize with people. So from the ages of 4 to 9, I had an eviction in kindergarten. My brother got deported for selling drugs. My father tried to kill my mother and left the country. Haven't seen him, right? So all these things happened. And then as I aged, my nephew passed, and he was the first person that was close to me that actually passed away. And you hear these things, and at the time they're happening, you say, man, this is really rough. Like, why are these things happening? But then as I began to lead teams, and every time I'd find myself in a really tough spot in life, I would have these moments and these same things would pop back up. And then when I'd hear other people going through it, for instance, when my nephew passed, I had never experienced a close death before. But then when I was leading a team of 100 people, I had no way to have a conversation with anybody about that, and trying to still lead people to hit goals and help be that rock for them in their moment of need. And when that happened, that gave me that perspective to say, hey, look, this is how I handled it. I'm not saying this is the way you have to handle it, but here are some things that, could help out, and I'm here for you if you need me. And going back to, like you said earlier, Ben, that authenticity, is really important. And everything that you're going through, it's like that old saying, you don't go through things, you grow through things, right? So those types of moments and remembering who you are and what you've been through will help be your rock in times of, like when the storm's coming. And then it'll also help take you to the next level, because when you get that new job or you're going for a position, you can look back and say, well, I've been through way worse in this job interview, right? You can walk into the job interview and be yourself and just be free.
No, definitely, definitely. And on that note, you kind of mentioned that you've been leading teams of 100 or whatever the large team is. How do you make them believe in your vision? Do you give them incentives, extrinsic kind of motivation, or how do you get your sales team pumped up?
Well, I am all about the incentives, but it's not the most important thing. But I love spending money on my people. And I remember I used to tell my teams, I said, look, the more money I make, the nicer these gifts get. Okay.
I want to work for you, and you got a spot open.
So if we had a rough month, the prizes would come from Walgreens. If we had a great month, I would be at Best Buy buying Apple Watches and all kinds of stuff. So
yeah.
So that the extrinsic motivation definitely helps. But the thing that I would say that, and I just did it just because it's what my mother taught me, and kind of who I am as a person. I love getting to know people. So when I had a team of 100 and when I worked on a sales floor of almost 1,000, I knew everybody's name. I knew a story about almost every single person. When new hires would come in during the interview process, a lot of my interview questions were about them as a person. And the reason for that is because when people know that you care about them as a person, they will do things that even you didn't think they could do, and that even they didn't think that they could do. So I'll never forget this. I had a rep who made me a trophy, and I always make this joke. It almost brought me to tears. I told him, I said, I'm not a crying type of dude, man, but it came out of nowhere, and he made me a trophy, and it said best manager ever. Now, keep in mind, I hadn't been his manager. He wasn't on my management group for almost a year, right? But the things that I did with him and kept encouraging him, and there were a couple of times that he was close to getting terminated, and I literally took him away from his supervisor and coached him myself and was like, man, you can do this, you can do this. And he ended up becoming one of the top reps in our department at the time. But most of our conversations were 90% about what he was trying to accomplish, what the job meant to him. Like I always had this saying, is this a career for you or a tool? And that's the conversation I have with everybody. Is this job a tool for you to do what you want? Or is it something you're trying to build on? And then leading the conversation that way, and then 10% about numbers. Really having those moments and getting to know your people is the most important thing. You're going to get close to people and it's going to hurt. And especially we have all these great apprentices in here, future leaders around the world. It is going to hurt. You're going to have moments where you're going to get very close to people and you will have to make tough decisions. Or like Joel mentioned, you know, sometimes the department does get shut down, but you don't have a choice if you're really trying to pull the best out of them. You have to show that you care about them. You have to get close. You have to push them based on what they're looking to accomplish. And once you do that, you know, all that intrinsic motivation is just going to come. And then now the incentives and stuff are just for fun.
I see. I love it, Andy. It's kind of back to your point of genuine. You have your team of 100 people, but you should make time to kind of get to know everybody on a person-to-person basis. Be there for them, give them a helping hand, and you'll see the benefits later down. So that's all the questions I have. So I'll open up the room for anybody who has a question to Andy. Feel free to unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, it's Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
This is Carrie. Andy, how do you keep such an amazing positive attitude? Where does that come from? Where do you source that?
Well, a couple of actual tactical things. So all those cold showers and early exercise and, you know, affirmations in the morning. I do all those things, especially, you know, I took your advice, Kara. I've been doing the affirmations a lot more consistently on a day-to-day basis. But really it comes, I would definitely say it comes back to when I look at my mother and all the things that she went through and when I was growing up, and I say, and my sister and, you know, all my family's had a very interesting background, to say the least. And when you look at that, you say, you know what, like I'm here, you know, like I'm not supposed to be here, born in the situation that I'm in. I have plenty of friends. Heck, like I said, my own brother, you know, are either dead or in a box right now. So when I factor that in, it helps. But then the other part of it as well is that knowing that even when I don't necessarily see it right away, for instance, if I'm leading a team and we're having a rough month, I know that as long as I'm staying consistent and true to who I am as a person and what I believe is the right thing to do, which is helping people, that it always will come back around, that everything's just going to be okay in the end. And I actually heard this on the Charisma on Demand, and it was a whole thing I actually showed one of my sales agents who was struggling, and he had a self-esteem issue. And it said, you know, a lot of your self-esteem will come from if you can just say to yourself, in the end, it'll all be okay. So once you have that core and that anchor, you'll always be all right. And you can stay positive.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I love it.
Perfect. All right, Andy, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time and sharing your wisdom. So like I said, definitely you guys can catch Andy. He'll drop his LinkedIn in the chat, as well as you'll catch him in the breakout rooms. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break, 10 minutes. Just you can shut your camera off and mute yourself. You don't necessarily have to leave the room. So I'll see you guys all back at 8 o'clock.